Even with their international image being of massive beer drinkers in both the size and amount, the typical German actually drinks on average 150 liters of coffee in a year, more than beer, wine, or mineral water. But how they drink their coffee is totally different than what we are used to in the US. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby, sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. I recently did a video about the reverse culture shocks we experienced in the US when we went back for our first visit in 2 years, and there was one particular thing that I said that stirred up way more controversy in the comments than I ever could have expected, and that was what you will often hear Americans living in Germany complain about, and that is Germany not having any coffee creamer. As I scrolled through the comments and read all the comments of Germans trying to convince me that coffee creamer does exist in Germany, I tried to figure out how best to address this issue of cultural breakdown. And as I did this, I actually started thinking about all the different ways that we've experienced German and American coffee culture being wildly different. So that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in our video. Drip, dip, sip. Coffee culture trip. So let me first establish my lack of coffee knowledge. I am a relatively new coffee drinker myself, and just in the past couple of years moved away from sugary filled drinks like frappuccinos, and today cappuccinos or a coffee with a splash of milk are my main go-to drinks. So I'm definitely no coffee expert, but even with this limited caffeine fueled experience, I started venturing out into more and more varied drinks in the coffee world, and some of what I found in Germany has been quite unexpected. Like the most shocking coffee drink that we've come across in Germany is a little drink called... Yeah, I had never heard of this, but one day we were at a restaurant that specializes in local regional cuisine, and under the drink menu, they had this word. And I was about to spit my drink out of my mouth when I read it. I was very intrigued and wanted to get it to try something new, but can you imagine my anguish as even with my German knowledge, I tried to figure out how I should say this word and ensure that it was respectful to the waiter? So Muckerfug is actually not coffee at all and is an Ersatzkaffee, or substitute coffee made from grains, chicory, or other ingredients like acorns or corn, for example. But definitely not coffee beans. This means that Muckerfug is also caffeine free, and it can also sometimes be referred to as Kinderkaffee, or children's coffee for this reason. So as a coffee novice, I have to say that I had never heard of any kind of drink like this in the US, although I did a little research and found that this isn't completely unheard of in the US. In Germany, Muckerfug seems to have been most popular in times of war or other hard times where coffee was a little more scarce or a luxury, and there is a similar history in the US, like during the American Civil War when coffee was scarce, so people made alternative coffee also out of things like acorns and chicory. So I'm not including this drink purely for the fact that this coffee alternative has never existed in the US, but more so for the name that when you read it for the first time as an American, it makes you spit your Muckerfug out in embarrassment. So in terms of where the name comes from, there are different stories about its origin, and one article from kaffeepartner.de says, first, it could be derived from the French mocha faux, which means false coffee. In addition, it is suspected that it is also composed of the Rhenish word mucke for brown wood malt or brown stowage earth, and Fug from lazy. And yes, I did try it at the restaurant and we found it out, and it honestly tastes more similar to coffee than I expected, but just a significantly weaker and more watery coffee than I would prefer. So maybe we need to cool down a little bit after the shock of the name of the last drink, so why don't we get ourselves a nice cold iced coffee? Well, if you're an American in Germany ordering an iced coffee, get ready for your next surprise because you aren't going to get what you expect. We know we are not the only Americans who have been surprised when on a hot day we order what we saw on the menu as iced cafe and think we will get what we call an iced coffee, literally just coffee served cold and poured over ice. However, in Germany, what you actually will get is what we refer to in the US as a float. In the US, a float traditionally refers to a dessert with vanilla ice cream scoops in a glass with some sort of drink poured over it, but traditionally root beer. In Germany, when you order an iced cafe, you will get ice cream scoops in a glass that has coffee poured over it. Honestly, you can't be too upset when you think you're going to get a coffee with ice cubes, but instead you end up with a delicious float, but it can still be a little bit shocking. If you really want what an American refers to as iced coffee though, they can honestly be kind of hard to come by in Germany sometimes. You definitely will find some places that offer them, like if you pop into a Starbucks in Germany for some reason, but honestly, who actually would do that?
And since I'm in the city, I'm gonna go and get my favorite treat, a Starbucks.
Or you can describe what you want and they will make them. Some of the comments from our German viewers the last time we talked about this also described that you can simply ask for Kaffee mit Eiswürfeln or geeiste Kaffee and you might get what you're asking for, but because this isn't a popular drink in Germany yet, you may just want to go ahead and order the iced Kaffee and I guess live with the happy accident. Real quick, I wanted to remind you guys that a link to our merch shop is in the description below, and also I want to give a huge shout out to our patrons for supporting our channel. I am always so appreciative of you guys, and if you would like to know more ways that you can support our channel, a link to our Patreon is in the description below, but also hitting that like and subscribe button just simply goes a very long way for us, and I would really appreciate you doing that. I would be remiss to talk about coffee culture in Germany and not mention our beloved German tradition of Kaffee und Kuchen. As we've mentioned so many times before, Kaffee und Kuchen literally is translated as coffee and cake and is the German version of English afternoon tea or Swedish fika. And it has quickly become one of our favorite cultural discoveries during our time living in Germany. It is a midday pause to meet with friends or family, have coffee and cake and a nice long chat. According to Condé Nast Traveler, in Germany, the habit of meeting over coffee and something sweet was first established in the late 17th century. Once coffee became more accessible beyond the country's elite in the 19th century, Kaffee und Kuchen became a fixture for those seeking a little break from the everyday grind. Kaffee und Kuchen normally takes place between 3 and 4-ish or 3 and 5-ish and on any day of the week really, but we do seem to see more people on the weekends filling cafes having coffee and cake while sitting for hours and hours just sitting and enjoying life and catching up. Although not great for our waistlines, we love the culturally devoted time to sit down and enjoy food and friends. It also is one of the few times where you would arrive to something punctually like the Germans love, but then just completely forget about the time as you just relax. In terms of the US, we really don't have any type of midday pause or break that we give a formal name like this, but it is extremely common for Americans to ask people to meet up for a cup of coffee in the afternoons, and this would just be meeting at a coffee shop, having an informal cup of coffee and chatting about life for just a little while. So not completely different, but also not such a formalized tradition, and unfortunately it doesn't normally involve delicious cake, something that should definitely change in the US. Now, when we're talking coffee, I finally need to talk about something that we've discovered in Germany that even after 3.5 years, we cannot wrap our minds around what it is, and that's the coffee shop or gift shop or electronic shop or clothing shop. I don't know what it is, but I'm talking about Tchibo. This is a store that we had never seen before moving to Germany, and I was a little weary about going in because I personally just see one thing when I look at the logo and didn't understand what kind of store that logo could be for. However, the first time I went in, it unfortunately didn't clear much up for me either. I mean, on one side you have a very nice looking coffee shop, but then you turn and you see people shopping for bras and wireless headphones. Even in our grocery store, we have a Tchibo section that sells anything from flasks to pajamas, and then of course, coffee beans. When I'm looking at going to a coffee shop, personally, my favorites are the kinds that are warm and cozy, maybe even feels a little bit like a living room. So when I see people sitting and sipping on a cappuccino surrounded by what I can only describe as a mini department store, but filled with gift ideas and bed sheets, I don't see the appeal really. But then again, maybe to a German, this type of shop simply makes sense to them and there's nothing wrong with that at all. All this to say, I had never seen anything like this store before, and I don't know if I will ever really understand if I'll have a need for Tchibo in my life, but I'll just keep walking by it and scratching my head every time I pass one in a German city. All right, let's finally get down to the controversial issue that I have left you waiting for, and that is Americans' frustration with not being able to find coffee creamer in German grocery stores. When I mentioned this in my video about reverse culture shocks, I didn't even think about the fact that I didn't actually explain what American coffee creamer was, or by saying it doesn't exist in Germany, that Germans would get it confused with coffee creamer like products that do exist in German grocery stores and try to correct me about it. So let me first start by going over the things that do exist in Germany and then tell you why they are decent coffee creamer substitutes maybe, but not the same thing. First, one thing that obviously gets confused with coffee creamer is Kaffeesahne or Kaffeerahm, and this makes sense considering Kaffee is the translation for coffee and Sahne is the translation for cream. According to blfgruppe.de, Kaffeesahne is made from pure cream and must have a fat content of at least 10%. The exact fat content is adjusted by adding the appropriate amount of skim milk. Unlike condensed milk, coffee cream is not subject to the process of dehydration and is always unsweetened. However, it is also heated to a high temperature of around 120 degrees Celsius to make it shelf stable. BLF Gruppe mentioned one of the other substitutes commonly found in German grocery stores that was also highly commented on my video as coffee creamer in Germany, and that is Kondensmilch. The same article described Kondensmilch as milk from which water is removed by condensation. The milk is heated to 40 to 70 degrees Celsius and thus thickened. It then has a fat content of 4 to 10%. The heating process also gives the condensed milk a slight caramel flavor. In addition, dried milk products that are sugar are often added to the condensed milk. There is also Kaffeemilch, which is just milk with a few added ingredients like cream or skimmed milk powder. So what am I talking about when I'm talking about American coffee creamer? Well, it is none of those things that I mentioned, with the biggest reason being that despite the word creamer being in the name, all those German alternatives are dairy-based, but American coffee creamer is non-dairy. In fact, American coffee creamer is primarily corn syrup solids, hydrogenated vegetable oil, and sodium caseinate. And because of it containing partially hydrogenated soybean and cottonseed oils, the most popular coffee creamer brand, Coffee Mate, is supposedly banned in Denmark, Norway, Iceland, and Hungary, according to Newsweek.com. But what about Kaffeeweisse? Isn't that coffee creamer, and isn't it non-dairy? Yes, but it comes as a powder in Germany and not a liquid. Of course, you can find powder coffee creamer in the US as well, but most Americans that I'm aware of prefer the liquid version over a powder version, and I would even venture as far to say that Americans find the powder version inferior to the liquid version. But if that's not the case, one of the main reasons you get coffee creamer is for the wide assortment of flavors that Kaffeeweisse does not have. We're talking the classic French vanilla, but all the way out to pumpkin spice or Reese's peanut butter cup, cookie dough, cheesecake, cinnamon toast crunch, and of course, hundreds more. So if I had to draw a comparison, I would say that telling an American they can just use Kaffeeweisse for their coffee creamer is like telling a German in the US that they can just go to the bakery in Walmart to get some baked bread. Sure, maybe it is sort of an okay substitute, but definitely it isn't the same thing. And that's why Germany does not have coffee creamer. At least the super unhealthy, crazy sweet, fake cream, but oh so delicious American version of coffee creamer that Germans probably wouldn't want to drink anyways. To see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, do you eat pineapple on pizza? Thanks so much for watching, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you in our next video. I don't know why I'm redoing that part, but it just feels like I should redo that part. Origins and one article